Okay friends, it's time to get started on replacing our battery vent tube assembly. To get started on this, let's gain access to the battery. Now once you've done that, continue on to the negative battery terminal. We'll use a 10mm to loosen this just enough that we can remove it from the battery. Then we'll do the exact same thing to the positive. Now let's gain access to our battery hold down bolt. To remove this bolt, we'll use a 13mm socket. Set that aside. Remove your battery hold down, give it a quick inspection, and set that aside as well. Before we go ahead and pull this out of the car, let's continue on over to the vent tube. We're going to be replacing this entire area, and it goes down along the side of the battery. Let's pop this out of the battery. If you see any fluid in this, be careful. That is considered battery acid. You don't want to get it on your skin or clothes. Now go ahead and take that battery, lift it up and out of the vehicle. It's going to be heavy, so be careful not to hurt yourself. With the battery out of the way, we can also remove this hose. We'll set that aside. Now, assuming you're replacing the lower tube as well, the next thing we have to do is safely lower the spare tire. To do that, we're going to come right here, turn that until it comes completely unscrewed, and set that aside. Now you're going to want to carefully grab onto this handle. At this point, what you want to do is carefully lift this up, and we're going to twist this counterclockwise. It's going to get a little heavy though, because this is what's holding up your spare tire at this point. Once you have the spare tire lowered, make your way safely underneath the rear of the vehicle, and you're going to be able to find the lower vent hose. Now for this hose, just come over here and pull that down and out of the floorboard. Now we're going to disconnect the rest of it. I'll come right up along this area. You can find a white connector. We'll go ahead and gently pry this out of here. Now that we have this out of the vehicle, we're going to continue by removing the hose from each of the adapters. You'll notice with your kit, it came with a whole bunch of hose, so you can replace the lower hose, and it came with one brand new adapter. Now the reason why it came with the new one is just in case you happen to need one. Typically, these are going to be just fine, but it's the hose that goes bad. With that said, we're going to go ahead and get the hose off of here. Generally, you can do this either by twisting it and pulling it off, or just give it a small slice. If you're using a razor blade, be extremely careful. Now we can take that hose, match it up to our new hose for length, we'll trim the new hose, and then we'll get ready for our installation. Just go ahead and bring that all the way across. Once you have the proper length, go ahead and trim it as needed. You can use cutters or continue with a razor blade. That looks pretty good. Now at this point, you just want to inspect each of those connectors. Assuming it looks good, let's go ahead and put it onto the new hose. For the hose, you're going to notice that it stretches over each of the connectors. There we are. I'll give that one a tug to make sure it's secure, and I'll do the exact same thing to the other side. Now let's have a look at the hose real quick. Pay attention to the direction I put the adapters. You'll notice that I have the short end of each of the adapters going into the hose. The long end is getting ready to go into the grommet, and the other end is getting ready to aim down. Now with that said, let's get this in the vehicle. Before we put the new hose in here, let's come over to the trunk area just above the tire, and you're going to find the rubber grommet that those hose adapters need to go into. I'll use a curved pick, and I'm going to carefully pry this out of here. Now we can get ready to install our brand new rubber grommet. Looking at the side of it, you're going to see that it has a slot making its way all the way around. That slot is where the body of the vehicle needs to sit. So essentially you want to have the top half inside the trunk compartment, the bottom half down here. Now getting this in here can be a little bit difficult, especially with having the spare tire unit in the way. But if you just carefully get your arm up there, generally you can just start pressing it in. When I do this, I start from one corner and then I just kind of make my way around. If you wanted to use a small screwdriver or even a small pick, it might be helpful, but generally using your thumb is fairly easy overall. Now we can take that hose and we'll start putting it in here. I'm going to start with one of my plastic adapters and I'll start sliding it up and through. Now that that's in there, let's continue on by putting the rest of it over into our plastic adapter. Now let's grab our angled pick. I'm going to try to put it inside of the plastic clip and just gently tug on it a little bit. I'm trying to create a gap that I can put my hose in. We'll just make sure this is all the way up in here. Once you have it up in there, make sure your adapter is facing down. If you have it facing up, it's not going to function properly. Before we make our way back up into the trunk compartment, have a look at that hose. Make sure it's facing in the right direction and it is secured properly. Assuming it looks good, let's get out from under the vehicle. Now back up top, let's continue with our upper hose. For the upper hose, we'll go ahead and remove our plastic adapter here. Give that a quick inspection. If it needs to be replaced, go ahead and replace it with the one that came with your kit. Now it's time to measure this hose. Just line this up, bring it right across. Trim it accordingly. Double check your length. Set the original aside. Install your adapter. Now from up top, let's go ahead and start pressing this hose onto the adapter. What you might find is that the adapter tends to move around or even slide down and out of the vehicle. If that's the case, just have somebody underneath there hold on to it. Press this on here. Now let's get our spare tire back up. Carefully grab that handle. Make sure you're holding your body weight up so you don't hurt your back. Go ahead and lift it up. Twist it clockwise to lock it in position. There we are. Now we'll just fold this over and put on our mounting nut. It's extremely important to make sure this is tight. Now it's time to reinstall the battery. Once again, it's very heavy. Don't hurt yourself. Now once you have the battery in there, continue on with your vent hose. We're going to take the adapter and slide it right into this hole here. It should press in. Make sure it's nice and tight. You want to make sure it's secure, so that way there, if the battery was to overheat or expand in any way, it's going to be able to vent down this hose that we just replaced all the way down out of the vehicle. Let's install our battery hold down. Make sure you start this in by hand so you're sure it's not going to cross thread in place. Once it's bottomed out, make sure it's tight. Give that a wiggle to make sure it's secure. Let's move along to our positive battery terminal. Go ahead and take that and put it onto your battery. Press it down as far as you can and tighten your 10mm nut. Make sure that's nice and tight. Do the same to your negative battery terminal. Now let's just double check everything. You want to make sure each of the terminals is tight and of course that vent hose is properly installed. Assuming everything's secure, let's continue on to this. We'll just slide it right on over. Now you can close the hatch. Okay, close the trunk and you're good to go. Thanks for watching.